Good afternoon, all, and welcome to another edition of the Sal Greco Show. And I'm your host, Sal Greco. Thank you all for tuning in. If you can, please hit that like, share, subscribe button, hit the notification button as well. Also, if you can, please share this out to your friends, even in the low information bubble. So if you can, as I stated, please share this out with all your friends. Thank you all. I see people in the comments already. Good afternoon, Tom Joyce, Hassan. It's good to see you guys. I hope everyone had a good weekend. It's been quite interesting week, to say the least. But now I just wanted to start with it's a show topic here, which is quite interesting, and that's the federalization of the police department. That's in DC right now, but could this come nationwide? So first, I want to show you a video of I think the president talking about this, about federalizing the police department, because this has been a concept that's been how can I say this? This has been in the works for quite a while. I'd say, like, you keep hearing about this, and I personally don't know how to grasp at this, because you have right now a Republican president, someone people I'd say like or trust more than a Democrat president. Obviously, if this was a Democrat, let's say this was Joe Biden, how would you feel? But let's hear the president's take what he implemented yesterday.
Now, for the first time, the president has taken over a local police department, in this case, D.C. Metro Police. President Trump said yesterday he will also send hundreds of National Guard troops onto the streets there in a support role in D.C., because he thinks the police need help cracking down on crime there. Scott McFarland is in Washington this morning. He's been following this story. Scott, a lot going on here. Good morning.
Hey, Tony, good morning. The police department in this community of nearly 700,000 people now responds to the president and the Trump administration. The president has claimed there's a crime emergency unfurling here, but the mayor says this is unnecessary and that crime has been plummeting.
A major American community's police department is now under President Trump's control.
This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back.
About 800 National Guard troops have been called up and are expected to be deployed by the president later this week to help police fight street crime.
We're not going to lose our cities over this, and this will go further. We're starting very strongly with D.C., and we're going to clean it up real quick.
The president defended his decision by painting an ominous picture of neighborhoods in the nation's capital.
Our capital city has been overtaken by violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals, roving mobs of wild youth, drugged out maniacs and homeless people.
D.C.'s mayor countered with new crime data showing violent crime has dropped 26% from this time last year, with homicides and robberies down too. But she acknowledged the president is within his rights to make these moves, since D.C. is not a state.
While this action today is unsettling and unprecedented, I can't say that, given some of the rhetoric of the past, that we're totally surprised.
White House and congressional sources told CBS News the president's order is expected to remain in place for 30 days. Nearly 500 federal agents, including from the FBI and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, have already been deployed, which former Homeland Security official Tom Warwick says is risky.
Taking FBI agents off of organized crime cases, terrorism, and other kinds of cases to do street patrols, that's not the best use of a highly trained FBI agent.
You think this could?
I tend to agree with that statement, because how does this exactly work? FBI agents are not cops. There's a reason there's a separation there. A police officer answers 911 calls all day long. Federal agent, although might be sitting on a house, most of the time they're sitting on a desk. They're looking at data, pictures, videos, surveillance footage. I don't know. This is I don't know how I feel about this. It says here in this article, the DC Guard is the country's only National Guard unit reporting exclusively to the president. Trump can temporarily take over DC's Metropolitan Police Department, which includes more than 3,000 sworn members for up to 30 days under the city's Home Rule Act. It's the first time a president has invoked the provision. Tom Joyce says the D.C. Home Rule Act 1973 is very different than DOJ oversight efforts. I don't like either. Something has to be done. D.C. is a mess. That's how I feel the same way, Tom. You could say a lot. We could say the same about other cities, but a federal takeover where actually National Guard and FBI agents could be in the street patrolling as per se the police officers, I don't know. That sounds crazy. And now I wanted to show you, before we go to our guest, the co-host of Finest Unfiltered, John McCarry. He had his take on it. So let's hear what John had to say about the federalization of the D.C. police.
So Trump just announced that he's going to do a federal takeover of Washington, D.C. Police Department, Metro PD, right? I mean, a lot of people are celebrating it. I think it's a dark day in policing, honestly. I think, we talked for years about the federalization of policing, and this isn't the way it's supposed to go, And I'm not knocking Trump for doing it, because obviously there's issues in every major blue city police department. But I think it goes into the bigger issue of, should mayors be appointing police commissioners? Right? Because basically when you're voting for mayor, you're not just voting for the mayor, you're voting for whoever they're going to put in charge of the police department, in front of the schools. And honestly, I think that the voters should answer that out. So in places like New York, particularly New York, 4 police commissioners in one term. Crime stat reporting is, oh my God, it's horrendous. It's not even real. Completely fudge lying numbers, shooting numbers. You had, I think, like 14 or 15 shootings over the weekend, multiple stab, people push in front of the trains almost every day. But do I really want to see a federalization of the police force? I know I said that they should come in and provide oversight. Maybe the police department should fall under federal receivership. And it's all well and good while Trump's the president. But I wouldn't be saying the same thing if Barack Obama was the president, if Joe Biden was the president. So I think it's a larger issue that needs to be discussed. Obviously, there's a problem in policing in major blue cities. A lot of it's stemming from corruption, DEI, lowering of standards, and the inability for the federal government to root the corruption out of the police department and root the discrimination out of these police departments. And if they did that, I think the police departments would actually do their job function instead of worry about being quasi-celebrities like most of these police commanders think they are, and actually focus on keeping the streets clean and the men and women in the police department. So I don't know. I think it's a question. Is it a good thing? I don't think so. I don't think I want to see a federalization of police departments. What if AOC was your president?
Imagine that if AOC was your president. So he has good takes there. I also, believe in a lot of things he was saying there, because federal, it really is like Special Hagen says here. The feds taking over the police department goes against the 10th Amendment and the concept of state rights. But these leaders are corrupt and incompetent, and the people end up suffering. It seems to be the trend, especially with the NYPD and the New York City Police Department. Will the DOJ, PB says, will the DOJ reform the DC police and make it better? I like to point out that weren't there National Guard in the subways in New York City, and how did that work out for everyone? So without any further ado, I'm going to have our guest, who's the other co-host of the Finest Unfiltered and a good friend of mine, Eric Dym, step up to the plate. Eric, how are you?
Outstanding, brother. Outstanding. How's it going today?
Oh, that's good. I think this is something that I think you would have strong feelings about. You've been in D.C. You've been around the whole country. What would this look like first? What do you feel? What your thoughts and feelings on the federalization of the D.C. police? And then, I guess, what do you think? Is this going to expand across the country? Because that might be a problem.
So it's interesting, right? I think we have to analyze D.C. itself, right? I spent a lot of time in D.C. I was stationed out in Quantico with the Marines. In D.C., while we refer to it as one of the 50 states, structurally, it's not an actual state, right? So Congress has full authority over D.C. However, when it comes to the Metro Police Department, it's unique in a sense. It still reports to the mayor as other Democratic cities do. So it makes sense for Trump to implement the DC Metro Police under federal oversight as a test subject. And in my opinion, this could be a test subject because he does have full authority. While it hasn't been done yet, he has full authority. So in my opinion, this is something that I expected coming for a long time, which I thought, based on my observations, watching this anti-police rhetoric, this disdain for police that we've seen since, especially at the height of it at 2020, which was the George Floyd riots, right? And this anti-police movement. The only difference I thought was with this abolishment movement of the police, it would come from Democrats. And I think that was the ultimate goal. It's just the Democrats never expected Trump would be in office again. Now, is it something that I like? Do I think it's a good thing? For the long-term goal, no. But I think in the short term, this may be something necessary to get Democratic blue cities on board to start controlling their police departments where they actually address crime and don't put victims last and make this making this a pro-criminal society. So what's interesting also, what's interesting also by this, I think this would be a great opportunity for a federal oversight to actually make a determination on what the crime stats actually are. Because prior to January of 2021, cities reported their crime to the FBI under the Uniform Crime Reporting System. And that changed in January 2021 to the National Incident-Based Reporting System. So a lot of these cities are saying that they don't have the ability to report crime accurately or to report all the crime because they're not in connection with this new system. So, which gives a lot of these Democratic mayors the opportunity to gaslight and say crime is down when in reality it's not. And we're seeing misclassification, misrepresentation of crime throughout Democratic blue cities throughout this entire country.
Yeah, I do. I remember the crime reporting that came into effect in the last 4 years, and it actually came to Senate, up the Senate stage when we found out that the NYPD, how do they fudge numbers, not reporting things, and it's because they're now reporting it through this system versus the old system. And again, I think what you're saying is two different things, which is what I wanted to get into also. So the federalization of the police department is one thing, but the oversight of one, now that's a whole nother concept, because you and I believe, and John and everyone here on this network would probably tend to believe a federalization of an oversight of the New York City Police Department is definitely needed, correct? I mean, that's what I would think.
Right. So I think this works twofold. One, it gives the federal government the authority over the police department, right? If the police department falls under federal authority, no longer would the police department report to the mayor, it would report to the federal government, which allows more oversight. So in our opinions, definitely mine, strongly opinion, the NYPD is in dire straits of federal oversight. So if any police department this should happen to right now, it should be the NYPD. Now, in the long term, I don't think it's a good thing because we lose the connection between community and policing. Now, I'm not saying community type policing. What I'm saying is very important that the police department has a connection with the community, and that comes through local politics. And if we lose that with federal government, we lose that connection. But I do think in the short term, especially for Democratic cities, which also equate to sanctuary cities, this may be what's necessary to actually deport illegal military-age males that are committing violent crime in cities throughout this entire country.
Yeah, so I actually want to show a graph here, right? So this is from Vital City, NYC on X. And it said here, the actual post was that it said, activating the National Guard to attack New York City crime would be nothing short of delusional. Read our report on the state of crime in New York City, which includes these headline charts. Now, if you see this graph, right, you see the offenses and you see the changes, right? And it says shootings are below pre-pandemic levels and are the second lowest ever recorded except for 2018. So all major crimes, the change from 2019 to 2025 is a plus 30.3%. The change from 2024 to 2025, though, is negative 5.7%. This is where the Fugazi number, soccer mom, Jessica Tisch specialist is happening here. Murder, 2019, 2025, it's up 1.4%, but 2024 to 2025, it's down 23%. Rape, from 2019 to 2025, is up 10.4%, and it's up in the last year 20%. Felony assault, 2019, 2025, up 43%, almost 44%. This last year, it's down 1%. Robbery, up 21%, 2019 to 2025. And the last year, it's down 13%. Burglary, up 24%, 2019 to 2025. It's down 3.4% in the last year. Grand larceny, plus 10%, 2019 to 2025. 2024-25, it's down 7.5%. Grand larceny auto, that's a big 106 precinct crime, I believe. Plus 10%, 2019-2025, down 4%, 2024-2025. Shootings, down 6.4%, 2019-2025, down 23% in the last year. But of course, Eric, with the shootings, we know they only count when the bullets hit someone. But if you call in a shots fired, the shot spotter, that doesn't count. You have to actually hit a human being. That's one of the other issues we've had with the police department. Also here, the other graph says there have been fewer shooting incidents so far this year in New York City than any other year in modern history. There goes where you really need to, ask what the hell's going on with that. So the year to date through July 20th, 2025, you could see that this graph goes all the way in 2000 to about almost 3,000 shootings. And now what's it down to? Like a couple of, it's trying to say it's less than 1,000. So from 1993, almost 3,000 to 2025, it's, I don't know, could be in a couple of hundreds, but you see that there's a big spike in 2021. Then 2022 is almost the same. 2023 is a little off. 2024 is a little off more than that. And right now it's showing that it's a little off. So this graph, Eric, shows that I guess they're trying to say crime is down, not as much as they say it. I don't believe in the last year. I think there's a lot of moving around in numbers. I mean, Sam Antar and Reza Chowdhury show that. They did that for a full year. And now you can see this chart. I guess they're trying to say you don't need a federalization of the police department in New York City.
So that chart may be reflective of crime stats, but the crime stats, in my opinion, are not accurate. And here's why. It's very easy to manipulate and misclassify and misrepresent shootings, particularly in these democratic cities. They will hone in, particularly with the NYPD, on crime being down, particularly when it comes to shootings. And we have identified that through our Finest Unfiltered network, the misclassification. And how do they do that? When it comes to shootings, and it's my opinion, and you can look at what's going on, if we're not documenting every trigger pull, we're not getting the full picture. And so what does that mean? That means if shots are fired, and we have shell casings and no one is shot, it's not being documented. And it's being misclassified. So it's very easy for a police department. And you could say, well, how do you know this? So as a special operations lieutenant, I attend the CompStat quite often, especially working in the South Bronx. Usually the Bronx precincts report to CompStat about every 6 weeks. So over a span of a year, it's quite often. And in that time, if a shooting is documented without someone being shot, typically it's reported as investigate shots fired. But if we put investigate reckless endangerment, it's easy for the department to say, yes, we reported to the FBI, but it was classified as reckless endangerment. And if it is captured and it is noted, then they can easily just reclassify and say, okay, we made a mistake. But if we're not documenting every trigger pull, we're not getting the full picture. Also, we have heard the shot spotters are not being maintained and they're being taken out from particular locations. So that's another major problem. So they're not being documented to where we are at 2025 in comparison to other cities. And many cities are doing this as well. So this is a major problem to manipulate those stats. I mean, we're seeing the full picture, but we're hearing something different. How is it that grand larcenies are up, rapes are up in many locations, assaults, but yet shootings are down? It doesn't match. And yet the NYPD will tout and they will boast that retrieval of firearms is up immensely. We're getting all these firearms. We're getting these illegal firearms off the street. And we have to understand, when you're removing illegal firearms, it corresponds with shootings, especially when it comes to New York City.
Yeah, I've seen these crime stats, and it's crazy that they're trying to say, oh, the numbers are down. So there's an article here, right? And right here, it's from the Daily News. A man executed at Brooklyn block party during 6-hour span with 10 shot citywide, right? And right here, the beginning of this article from the Daily News, which is, I believe, Rebecca White and John Anise wrote this. 2 men were killed, 8 people wounded in a spat of shootings over a bloody 6-hour span in New York City stretching into early Sunday, including a caught-on-video slaying where a hooded gunman executed a man at a crowded block party. The string of shootings, which spanned 3 boroughs and are not believed to be related, began at the block party in Sunset Park, Brooklyn, where about 50 people are gathered to celebrate a longtime neighbor's 78th birthday, a witness told the Daily News. So, and I believe this happened on 4th Avenue and 57th Street around 10 p.m. Saturday. And you can actually scroll down and see the weapon used. The shooter, a slim man in a black hoodie with his hands in his pockets, shuffles slowly up to him as bystanders continue to a party. And suddenly the killer whips a gun out of his pocket and spins around to fire 5 times at close range at Cuevas, the victim, as the crowd around them scatters in a panic. I mean, now, if crime is down, right, you believe this narrative, and then you can actually see they actually have the crime scene there. If crime is really down, Eric, how does someone feel so brazen as to do this? If they believe that, if people walk around with a gun, this isn't like when we were on the job, or even in the 1990s, where you really had to think twice of doing something like this because you know what could happen to you, especially firefights with police officers, or they were just going to get you. This is brazenly, just like last week, a week ago, when we had a mass shooting, an active shooter in Manhattan, but crime is down. The soccer mom's got it, Eric.
So you brought up a great point. In that article that you just brought up, there's an argument there. Well, these are locations that have been plagued with crime even when times were good. Some parts of Brooklyn, the Bronx. But what they can't ignore is this. And you just said Manhattan. So, Sal, you remember, it wasn't too long ago when we were employed by the NYPD. At the time, things were still good, starting to trend downward. But if you recall, and I specifically recall going to Comstat, if there was a shooting in Times Square, it was like seeing a unicorn, right? It was something that you didn't hear. And if you did hear about it, the whole entire department would have had a full court press. And that's why I always say there's 2 benchmarkers for a crime in New York City to really get a full picture of what is going on in New York City, especially since we're talking about New York City now. There's 2 benchmarkers. That's Central Park and Times Square. And look at Central Park and Times Square under Giuliani, and look at Central Park and Times Square in comparison till now. Look at Central Park and Times Square even under Bloomberg, and even further under former Mayor Bill de Blasio. And under Eric Dym, those two locations have been plagued with crime, and it's a major disaster. Times Square, there has been, I think, 3 people shot in one incident in the past couple of days. That is unprecedented in the past 20, 30 years in comparison to the turnaround we saw in Times Square. So in my opinion, those are the two benchmarkers. Let's not look at the South Bronx. Let's not look at East New York. These are particular locations that have a propensity for violence. Let's look at those two locations.
This article continues with some like fascinating stuff here with numbers. It says no arrests have been made, but cops are looking for 2 men who fled the scene on a moped. Again, a moped. These are things that back in our time they weren't around, but now criminals run around on mopeds. The killings come amid a sharp drop in shootings and homicides across the city this year. As of August 3rd, murders are down citywide by nearly 26%, with 179 slayings this year through August 3rd compared to 245 in the same time frame last year. Shootings are down 21%, with 422 incidents compared to 534 by this time last year. 2 more shootings in Brooklyn Sunday left 4 people wounded. Just before 1:20 a.m. Sunday, a man bleeding in his 20s was shot in the right arm, and a 35-year-old woman was blasted in the chest and right arm on Bushwick Avenue near Jefferson Street in Bushwick, police said. But so this article literally just like reiterates what happened over the weekend. And just like you were saying, and like Marlon always says, and John always says, if everything was down, right, you see all these incidents, how is it that you read about it, you see about this, but the numbers don't match what people are saying or feeling, like in the subways? And let's be honest, Eric, would a federalization of a potential federalization of the New York State Police Department change any of this?
Well, right now, the amount of damage that's done in New York City, in my opinion, it's going to take decades to fix. But we need something to fix it. And if the NYPD was taken over as a federalized police force, and with that we'll have federal oversight, no longer will the police department report to the mayor. And so ultimately that was the point of John's video, which I thought was great. I think John nailed it. And that's something that we talk about, right? Especially in New York City. The political structure has really had an adverse effect on the NYPD, particularly in comparison to other cities or other counties or other places in the country where the police departments are succeeding. In some of those places, that's where we have a local sheriff elected by the people. So because the mayor is elected by the people, the mayor has full authority in New York City to appoint the police commissioner. So obviously the mayor is not going to appoint a police commissioner that's going to give him or her opposition or be a polarizing figure. They're going to have someone that falls in line. So ultimately what we see is, in order to be a police commissioner in the NYPD, you need to be a loyalist to the mayor, which means you're going to comply with those policies. And obviously the policies of New York City under Eric Dym has been an epic fail. And that is it's been a trickling effect to the NYPD. We've been plagued by appearance of impropriety, corruption, scandal after scandal. We don't have an internal affairs bureau that can be trusted, which is why I call it the Selective Affairs Bureau. Federal oversight in the short term may be the only fix, just to take the reins away from the NYPD and allow different structure and start weeding out these active chiefs that all are complicit and compromised.
Yeah, Michael M. says something that's interesting, and it's actually bringing back this memory. Now, I remember this. When rebuilding Times Square, the city had to guarantee to companies such as Disney that they would maintain it and keep crime down. If we lose Times Square, don't be surprised if companies such as Disney close up. And that's interesting because that's how I remember. I don't know if you remember the Hard Rock that's there was once the WWF Hard Rock. It was like the WWF in Times Square, which was a bold move. I mean, even wrestling came to Times Square at this time, I believe in 02 and 03. So there was a time period where Michael's right in that Times Square had to be no crime. Like they guaranteed that they would, put as many boots on the ground as they had to in order to keep crime down. But then something happened along the way with Bill de Blasio and Eric Adams, where I don't even know if you want to walk down Times Square and you risk it, taking your life into your own hands down there. And I see what you're saying about the federalization. I think the oversight, I agree, has to happen because of all the corruption in the police department, which we're about to get to. But to actually have federal employees, i.e., the FBI, the National Guard, as boots on the ground, when I personally feel, Eric, the best way to do this is not even by, I know you need to hire more police officers. An abundance of police officers is never a bad thing. But there's the mismanagement of it. Why? Even with allegedly 27,000 cops, if you stash a bunch of them, which are your buddies, the cronies, the nepotism, all these friends of yours, you put them in units such as DCPI, this Kaz Dordry, kiss the ring unit. I don't know, 4 or 5 people driving around John Shell, 4 or 5 people driving around the other chief. All these cops, and there's so many bureaucratic units in one police plaza, all out, which was a program designed so that you took all the, we like to call in the NYPD, the house mouses, all the administrative personnel, the admin lieutenants, 3 cops, 3 drivers in every precinct. These people were supposed to be out in the street for the summer to add extra muscle. It ended up becoming the regular cop that works in a precinct just goes to another precinct. So that's why you're short when you're really not short. Because, Eric, 27,000 cops, if you spent the money to civilianize many of these positions, I don't think that you need 3 admin personnel in a precinct to do administrative work for a lieutenant. That's just that's one easy one. Then you have more cops in the street. And with more cops in the street, you have extra help. And you won't end up like the 106 precinct where there's 1 car patrolling the entire precinct for much of the day. And there might be a secondary car later on. So there's 2 cars for a whole precinct. That is the problem, Eric. It's the mismanagement of personnel and how they structure that, because that is why there's no one out in the street. So even if you hired more people, Eric, what happens? Oh, more people, more friends we have to hook up. So we go from 80 people in DCPI, Eric, to now 100, because now we have 5,000 extra cops. Instead of saying we need 1 person in DCPI, 4 people at best, because if who goes on vacation, who gets sick, and everyone else out in the street. I don't care. Your daddy knows Chief so-and-so. You need to be out in the street. But that is the issue here, Eric.
So that you're absolutely right, which is another reason why federal oversight would be necessary in the short term, because we have failed leadership. With failed leadership comes mismanagement. The NYPD is upside down right now with mismanagement. I've said it numerous times. I'm going to say it again. Say it again until this is adopted within the NYPD. There is a 3-tiered system. Tier 1 is your upper echelon. Those are your chiefs. They're the job. They run the job. They enjoy the benefits of the job, and the rules do not apply to them. Tier 2 is those that benefit by nepotism and cronyism. And then there's everyone else. That was us, Tier 3. That's why we're no longer on the job. We were general population. That's where the rules apply. Completely mismanaged. Mismanaged. It's so excessive right now that we have people receiving over $200,000 in overtime that can't be accounted for. That's a major problem. Also, with these scandals equate to allegations. Allegations equate to lawsuits. Lawsuits cost money, especially under Eric Adams. They're all indemnified. So in the short term, federal takeover would equate to federal oversight, which could potentially be a chance to have better management and then give the reins back to the city at some point. Do I think a police department is more effective to be part of local government, to be part of the city? Absolutely. Do I think federal oversight and federal takeover is necessary in the long term? No. But I do believe this is a byproduct of failed policies in democratic cities. It's a byproduct of failed action to support police departments that have been overrun by this anti-police movement, this bias and disdain for police. And at some point, I figured the federal oversight would come, but it would be under Democrats. But now that it's under Trump, we're going to hear rhetoric that Trump is authoritarian, he's tyrannical. That's what we'll hear. I mean, here, we have a comment here from TC, who's a great friend to the podcast. And I don't agree with this comment, but he has a right to his opinion. He says, basically, this is just a way to hurt black people. Trump wants another Floyd. I don't agree at all. I think this actually is an opportunity to help black people. It's predominantly Democratic cities, which are predominantly black cities, where young black men are being killed by gunfire. Crime is out of control, and we have these Democratic policies and Democratic legislators who are trying to hide crime by not documenting every trigger pull, which doesn't give you the full picture. So who doesn't care about black people? I think Trump actually cares, which is why he's taking this action. And it makes sense to take action first with DC, because DC is not a state in the structural sense that other states are implemented. It is under Congress, and it's a federal district.
Yeah. I think maybe this works for 30 days. Who knows? Maybe this is just a pilot program or something. But I don't, New York City, it needs oversight, but not the actual personnel in the street, because I don't think that would ever work. And that goes for many other cities too. You need oversight to find out there's public corruption, and we're about to get that, Eric. That's another issue in the police department. Chronicles of Collapse said, we see more crime, but are told no. The numbers show declines all around. Don't believe what your own eyes tell you. That is gaslighting. That's exactly what's going on, Chronicles. That's exactly what's really going on in New York City. That's the exact problem. But again, I see people mentioning the Q teams and stuff in the chat. That's a specialty unit, right? Every command, every precinct had a specialty unit. Eric came from anti-crime. There was conditions. So you had 4 to 5 cops and a supervisor running around and doing the things the Q team would do. But to actually have now thousands of cops in this unit, when I'm going to tell you the truth, it isn't 24/7 that they're running around answering radio runs and 911 calls. So there's a lot of downtime. In the precinct, though, with precinct cops, there's not too much downtime, because there's prisoner transports, there's hospitalized prisoners, there's all kinds of stuff going on. That's where the personnel is needed. The Q teams is just a specialty unit in a way to hook up your crony or your cousin or, something like that. That's how we see this. Is it needed? Yeah, but not as ballooned as it's about to become. Because that's what you're going to see. They're going to balloon this unit. They're going to tell you, oh, crime is down. And you a Q team. It's all nonsense. It's essentially the old street crime team. And even so, remember, there were crime units in each precinct, 5, 6 cops, maybe 8 total, that did the job of what these guys are doing. And then the borough would have a smaller unit, which again was half of that, because you need more people in the precincts. Now, I don't know why an admin lieutenant needs 3 drivers, and if it's a male, it's 3 females in there. So, any questions about that? And that's the problem with the personnel. It's being mismanaged. So some of this stuff could easily be attacked and nipped, but instead they just avoid it, kick the can down the road, and keep hooking up their cronies, Eric. That's just the facts of life here.
Got a great comment by Finest Unfiltered family. 2 comments. Great comments here. Ron Lazen says, I think people are forgetting that the NYPD is already under federal oversight and has to answer to a federal monitor, yet they do not follow the guidelines dictated by the monitor.
Yeah.
That is a great comment. However, that federal oversight is quite limited, right? Their federal oversight works hand in hand with the Risk Management Bureau, which I think it's a new name right now within the police department. And that was particularly oversight with stop, question, and possibly frisk under the case of People versus DeBoer and Terry versus Ohio. So it wasn't overall oversight of the police department. I do agree. And with that, the NYPD is very careful on how they report it to the federal oversight with that. So that's a great comment. Also, I agree with what Marlon's saying here. Marlon and I talk often about how real estate corresponds with crime and the police force. So Marlon says here, their fiscal inability to properly run the police department will be even more obvious once the commercial property value declines, hits the books, and causes a massive budget hole and funding cuts. That is absolutely true. You can see a correspondence with crime and real estate. If we look at history, right, the best prediction of the future is a reflection of the past. So if we look at history, particularly in the South Bronx, we look at the structural of the Cross Bronx Expressway, which was created by Robert Moses, which is why a lot of people in the Bronx hate Robert Moses, because the Cross Bronx Expressway ripped through entire neighborhoods, which caused a major decline in real estate and which ultimately had effect on neighborhoods and the police department as well. So great point, Marlon. I appreciate it. We have to look at federal oversight as a benefit in the short term, in my opinion. In the long term, yes. At some point, it could become tyrannical and have that federal oversight and lose that connection with the community. But if it's a short term, kind of like a blitz, where we could just get control, get proper leadership in there, and people that actually know how to run a police department, then I'm not against it.
Special Hagen says the NYPD is in a state of emergency. The mayor was previously indicted. The attorney general seems to be on our way to being indicted. The city council refuses to call a commission. And where was this? And Hochul has been asleep at the wheel her whole administration. Michael M., who I was about to get to this, points out Chief Pontillo, who was shown the door, ensured the department adhered to federal guidelines. That's, Serena Townsend, who's Chief Pontillo's lawyer, was on this program not even a couple of days ago. And Chief Pontillo, if you remember, who did recommend to the police department certain things to keep in line with that federal, the federal monitor, what happened? Shell, Caban, oh, he has to go. You don't tell us what to do. So there's no mechanism to stop them from doing something like that. So that's where we're saying you need a real federal monitor, meaning someone has to be on top of a police commissioner or something who's a federal personnel that says, no, you're going to actually we're going to let you run the police department, but that kind of decision will never happen. And whoever gives that decision is terminated on the spot. Shell should have been terminated a long time ago, but him saying that to him should have been gone right away. And the same goes with Ed Caban, who did what they did to Pontillo, who actually was the one guy trying to adhere to the federal monitor, yet now there's nobody adhering to anything. They just do whatever they want. No body cameras, Eric. There's no body cameras on these CRT guys running around. They were doing all kinds of stuff. Kaz Daughtry himself. It's just crazy. And they don't see a problem with that.
Well, I think, again, I'm not in favor of federal government, a federal takeover. I don't think we should be running around like a bunch of federales like this is Mexico. I do believe in state and local government. And the reason why is because, excuse me, policing is not a one-size-fits-all. The way we police in New York City is going to be different than how you police in a parish or in Louisiana or a county in Mississippi. Obviously, policing has to be tailored to a specific community. So if we had complete federal oversight and a federal government takeover, it would just be one blanket authority, one blanket policy. And that doesn't ultimately work in how the U.S. is broken down. However, this is a great opportunity to really change the structure in New York. And New York has a major problem politically. If you look at the difference between, and I say this often, if you look at, for instance, Los Angeles, now they have their own problems. However, Los Angeles County is incorporated by numerous cities. Numerous cities make up Los Angeles County, which is why you have elected sheriffs and elected officials. But in New York City, each borough is its own county. So it's 5 counties that make up a city, and each borough has its own borough president, and each borough president reports to the mayor. And we have a police department that reports to the mayor. So the mayor has way too much control in New York City. because it's 5 cities that incorporate a county in comparison to cities incorporating a county. So I think it's something that we need to look at. I think ultimately the best way to go, and I've been saying this for a long time, I think each borough in New York City should be its own police department, and each borough should have an elected official or an elected sheriff. And I think that's the problem, that 5 counties make up a city. It's just way too much power for a mayor. New York City is like no other place. The New York City mayor is pretty much like a governor.
Pretty much. But I'm not for the federalization of police departments. I do think, though, that some of them need a federal monitor or someone in there because of what? Government corruption, Eric. And to kind of switch into that gear, right? We knew about this in New York City, but no one's being held accountable. See, if you held these figures, whether in the police department or the mayor's office or the sheriff's office or city council, if you hold them accountable, all of this would stop. But when you let people go because they want to help you get your golf course, get $100 million deal on a golf course, and want to put your name back on a woman rink, well, then you are to blame. You have a huge hand in why New York City is way off the rails. Because now you look back, it wouldn't have been so bad if Jumaane Williams was the mayor, right? You would have been screaming for Curtis Lee to get elected. But you all wanted, oh, we can't have him. Oh, my God, it's the end of the world. And you liked seeing Trump step in and do corrupt stuff with Eric Adams. So now you got what you got with Eric still destroying the city, right? He's destroyed the city. You still have all these problems. You're being lied to every day with everything. Whereas Jumaane Williams was a short-term thing that was going to last a couple months, and you would have had a Republican mayor. But instead, you all cried like little sheep in New York City, and you kind of got what you deserved, in my opinion, with that. Because if you would have had Eric get removed, that would have been the best thing for New York City. Instead, now you're stuck waiting around, hoping that Curtis gets elected. So the next thing was, there's a lieutenant. This week I found out, I posted this guy, NYPD Lieutenant Commander Detective Squad Thomas B. Fabrizi, was busted for allegedly stealing $64K in city funds through bogus overtime slips. He was terminated by the NYPD Police Commissioner. Yet many chiefs under her, meaning the soccer mom, Jessica Tisch, are still employed today who authorized the same actions. And if you scroll down here on that post, the order that shows that he was dismissed is on that. But there was an article, and in the article that was written about Fabrizi at the time, it said, during some of the periods he allegedly claimed he was working, Fabrizi, 43, was instead driving home to Rockland County in an unmarked SUV assigned to the major case squad, according to the court documents. He also put in for OT for hours spent at home after returning from work, and for time periods when he never even traveled to New York City. He was just hanging out in Rockland County. That's what the prosecutors charged him. And here you go. This is some of the money he made. So the fiscal year, the 2024, it's $150,000 that he made in 2024, which is this year. And last year, in 2023, 2024, $236,000. Made about $100,000 in overtime alone in 2023. And in 2022, almost the same thing. He made $222,000, and he had $136,000 as his base pay. So, I mean, there's a huge disparity there, Eric, but it kind of leaves a bitter taste in your mouth when you're saying, once again, this is a low-hanging fruit. Obviously, Eric, he puts in all these overtime slips. Someone sees this. There's a chief of detectives. There's a chief, all these chiefs. And, of course, the ultimate seer would be the first deputy commissioner, who would have been at this time first Eddie Caban, who became a police commissioner, and now Tanya Kinsella, and then all the police commissioners, whether it was Sewell, Caban, Donlin for that brief period, and they just abused him, and now the soccer mom. So where is the oversight? Oh, I forgot Jeffrey Madry was the chief of the department, also oversaw this. So the soccer mom's going to destroy this guy, who's probably going to get, some kind of, I don't know, I don't know if he's going to get sentenced. He's going to be found guilty. But we're really looking at a small potatoes here, Eric, in a larger scheme where we just saw the Madry stuff, and we don't even scratch the surface there because there's all kinds of stuff that went on there, plus extortion and all other stuff. So what is your take on that? Because that alone shows this department definitely needs some kind of federal oversight, or someone needs to be held accountable. We need to see real indictments on public corruption, because that's what's missing here. That's what's missing here, Eric.
Well, I have to admit, I'm quite disappointed. I'm disappointed in Jessica Tisch, because we've had failed commissioner after commissioner. And Jessica Tisch, while not being a cop, she has by far been the most suitable in comparison to former Commissioner Dermot Shea, Jimmy O'Neill, Ed Caban, Tom Donlin, Keechan Sewell. It took someone who was not a cop to have far more class than these other imbeciles. Her speech, her presentation, her eulogy for Officer Islam was outstanding. She has done many good things, but we have to be critical, and I'm critical of this termination. Now, I'm not commending, I'm not giving any accolades to this lieutenant for stealing an excessive amount of overtime. But this is a complete deflection. He's not a lone wolf in this. There are other lieutenants, there are other police officers, but more importantly, there are high-ranking chiefs within the NYPD, particularly Jeffrey Madry, that have went off into bliss and retired, who are ultimately responsible for this excessive overtime. It starts with leadership. Now, while former Lieutenant Quatisha Epps has a legitimate claim against Jeffrey Madry, she still received an excessive amount of overtime, and yet it's been seen as an administrative infraction. To terminate this lieutenant shows again that there is a three-tiered system in this department. It's the upper echelon, it's nepotism, and obviously this lieutenant has now been pushed into general population, and the rules apply to him. So if he's terminated, Jeffrey Madry should be in jail. If he's terminated, Tanya Kinsella should be terminated and removed from her position as well. He's in charge for the balance and for the auditing for overtime for the entire police department. It's an epic fail. Former Lieutenant Fabrizi is not a lone wolf. I'm not commending his actions, but I think if he's going to be terminated, we have to have a standard comparison. How could Jeffrey Madry just retire into bliss? It's not fair. It's wrong. This is just another ramification that destroys and rips through the morale of the NYPD.
Here's something that the soccer mom said at an unrelated press conference at a certain point. I can't speak to the past, but what I can say about the president is we have articulated very clear overtime controls and reiterated that it is the responsibility of managers in this department and certainly executive leadership in this department to manage and focus on overtime. That is nothing new, and that is the case at any city agency that you work at. I dealt with the same issues at the Department of Sanitation, but clearly, I guess she's not doing anything about it. I dealt with these issues, but what are you going to do about it, soccer mom? Because clearly, that's why we nicknamed you the soccer mom, because you're like a deer in headlights and just ignoring the obvious. And I don't know if you have a say, or you're just another police commissioner name only, which is what I highly suggest is going on here. But the blame is going to fall on you. And I got to read constantly that you brought crime down. You're so great. Yet there's people walking around with long rifles in New York City. You had 6 people shot this weekend, and you're going to tout that crime is down. You're going to actually sit there with this criminal mayor and say, oh, everything's hunky-dory here. This is what a great job are you saying a great job by the cops on the street, or a great job by John Shell, Kaz Dawdry, and the rest of the crew? That's what I don't really understand, because whenever there's a pat in the back for everyone, they pat the executives on the back, and they use the men and women, the rank and file, as like the scapegoats for everything. And, oh, yeah, they're doing great, but look at me. And that's basically what this has become. This is crazy. This guy is like a fall guy almost. yeah, he's guilty, but he's one in how many people? Because his overtime slips, who signed it? It's not him. He didn't sign it. So why are we trying to hold this guy responsible when all your managers and executives are either turning a blind eye or are in on the skim? That's how I see this, Eric.
Well, I would like to thank Special Hagen, great friend to the podcast. Good comments today, really engaged. We appreciate it. That's what's unique about this platform is the audience is a major part of this podcast. And spot on here. The person who signs off on the overtime still has her job. Ultimately, while Fabrizi, former Lieutenant Fabrizi, received the benefit for having excessive overtime, he did not have full authority, right? We always talk about checks and balances, and there's always supposed to be oversight within the police department. We learned this day one. Oversight, oversight, oversight. So the fact that he supposedly did this on his own is absolutely ridiculous. Sal, there's a comment here. You have to read it. Falls in line with your Nolan from the Lone Silencer. You got to read it.
I see.
Clearly, this lieutenant was not on team Consofrito.
Consofrito. You're right. I don't think so either. But again, we're treating him like he's some kind of special guy that did everything on his own, when clearly all of this stuff will be monitored. Excessive overtime. Why the reasoning for the overtime, the codes used for overtime. You think Fabrizi did this on? I'm just going to sign my own slip. It doesn't work that way. We're revisiting something from when we everybody jumped on Epps' case. You can only do what you're authorized and told to do in a police department. Here, you're getting rid of this one lieutenant, and we're ignoring who his supervisors were, the management at the time, and the staff on top. Why? Because it involves all of Eric Adams' people, every single one of them. And that's why you're hearing about the federal takeover. You don't need that if you held people accountable. That's all you need to do. But we don't want to charge the mayor. Why? Because the next thing I want to show you is the guy that pled guilty, Erdogan Erkan, who was one of the donors to Eric Adams here. Let's read this. Erdogan Erkan, 76 of KSK Construction Group, pled guilty in January to conspiracy to commit wire fraud after prosecutors said he worked with the Eric Adams campaign to funnel illegal cash to the mayor's election bid, should get a year of probation, pay $18,000 in restitution, and $9,500 fine. Federal prosecutors recommended. The light sentencing reflects the prosecution balancing the fairness of holding others accountable without being able to hold Eric Adams accountable, thanks to President Trump and now Judge Emil Bove in a quid pro quo. So that guy who pled guilty had his life ruined, right? He's now have to face all these things. But Eric Adams, remember, was let off because what? Trump wants his name back on the Woolman rink, and he wants that casino in the Bronx. And the criminal mayor agreed that he would try to veto and do all these things, which he did. He put Cass Dawdry in charge of the Parks Department, dealing with the naming rights to the Woolman rink. So that's what really happened here, folks. So once again, this guy's life is ruined, and the main reason for it is walking around doing all kinds of. We're going to show you a video. The guy's dancing somewhere. I don't know what you got to say. What do you think about that, Eric?
Well, I could say this, right? Again, let's look at these two cases and let's do a comparison here. We've shown you case after case after case. Look at this video right here.
It's him dancing.
But look at the difference. Look at the difference between Lieutenant Fabrizi. We're talking about $64,000 overtime. And then we have former Lieutenant Quatisha Epps. And former Lieutenant Quatisha Epps is not just the only. There's many other lieutenants. We need to look at John Scholl, chief of department. Let's look at his driver also. There's a lot of people that should be looked at. We've had the overtime. Marlon, who was a former detective for the NYPD, who's even a better detective right now for the Finest Unfiltered, pulled up a lot of great information to show the excessive amount of overtime that has been harbored within the NYPD. Right? But look at the difference. Former Lieutenant Quatisha Epps has over $200,000 overtime that has not been answered for, and it was treated as an administrative infraction. Why? To protect Jeffrey Mandry and his cohorts.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, 64,000 overtime, Lieutenant Fabrizi was terminated. Why wasn't Lieutenant Fabrizi's overtime not an administrative infraction? Why not?
I don't think he has the same circle of friends. That's what it is. He's not tied to the nepotism and cronyism. He's not in a crumbs.
Exactly.
Group. He's not a consofrito. If he was, that this would never be, it wouldn't even be mentioned. Plus, they need a scapegoat, Eric, because they can't attack their own people. They can't say, oh, well, I authorized Epps and extorted her as chief of department. That's basically what Jeffrey Mandry would. Eventually, it's going to be out there. And he's not being held accountable, Eric. He was never modified. He was never suspended. And the FBI is sitting on their hands because they're too busy letting Eric run around with his cronies, do whatever they want. And every past investigation is on hold because one man who wants to federalize all the police departments wants his name on the rink, the woman rink, and that casino in the Bronx. That's what this boils down to. Look at this guy dancing. What this guy is doing. He's I mean, what can I say?
I mean, listen, as a mayor, he's an epic fail. As a character, he's a great character, Eric Adams. And if you want a character for mayor, you got it, Eric Adams. If you want someone that's actually going to do the job for mayor, maybe it's time to elect someone else. And unfortunately, it's been driven to believe that your only choices are Eric Adams, Cuomo, or Mamdani. Can we look at the other side of the aisle, please? There is a man who's lived his life in New York City, who still rides the subway, that still believes in New York City. His name is Curtis Lewa. Who is the man for the job at this time? And unfortunately, people have been gaslight and pointed so much direction that they could only see on the Democratic side of things right now in New York City.
It's pathetic. Anthony DiMaggio says systematic overtime theft cannot happen without certain people looking the other way. The question is why they suddenly decided to drop the hammer. Who did he piss off? I think, Anthony, he just fell in line with they need someone to throw out there to keep away from what they're all doing. So they're going to throw this tiny fish out that's not part of their crew and say, tag, you're it. Don't look at us. Don't look at Shell's driver. Don't look at Kaz's drivers and all those people in there. Don't look at Tiny Kinsella. Don't look at any of them because here you go. We got one of them. We got one person that is the smallest of he's the smallest of the fish on the rod. It's really, and the next thing I'm going to show you is something else that goes with this, right? So Eric Sanders put a tweet out, and this is very important. Ex-New Jersey police chief sentenced for sexual assaults on subordinates, some inside headquarters. This is the Attorney General, and this was in the Lyndhurst Daily Voice. In New Jersey, a police chief like Thomas Herbst, I hope I get his name right, gets 7 years in state prison for sexually assaulting subordinates. In New York City, NYPD officials accused of similar conduct often face paid desk duty, internal discipline, or a quiet retirement with a pension. The difference, in New Jersey, they prosecute them. In New York City, they protect. And I don't know if you could click on this article. Look at this. Manville Police Chief Thomas Herbst, I hope I say his name right, sentence. A former New Jersey police chief has been sentenced to 7 years in New Jersey State Prison for sexually assaulting and abusing multiple subordinates over more than a decade, authorities announced. Where have we seen this before, Eric? How come it's New Jersey holding people accountable and the NYPD just says, don't worry about it. Let's all party to the break of dawn together?
Well, it shows you how much power and authority the NYPD has when they have a mayor that puts in his cronies and his nepotism. We're seeing the byproduct of how bad things could get and how much authority and how much power, when we give power to weak, dangerous men, where we could be in this position right now. And they're just untouched, and that's why this continues. And I think, again, I'm going to say it, I mean, two fantastic attorneys who have been on your show, Eric Sanders and John Scola, have been really given silver linings of what goes on with the NYPD. and particularly John Scola said on your interview with him, and I thought it was fantastic. If anyone wants to tune in, watch the interview with Sal Greco and John Scola, where John Scola says the NYPD never looks to fix the root of problems. They just put a Band-Aid. They pay for the problem so that the problem can continue. They pay and pay and pay so these chiefs can continue to enjoy the benefits. John Scola, hands down, that was fantastic. I learned a lot. I had a lot of perception on what I thought of John Scola. And, I heard a lot of negative, derogatory things about him. But when I watched that interview, I said, wow, that was a great take. And he really explained how it works with the upper echelon of the police department. And I think it mirrors and piggybacks on the fact I've been talking about this three-tiered system within the NYPD. So I think it's Anthony DiMaggio, right? One of our friends on the podcast, great comment that you read before. Obviously, former Lieutenant Fabrizi is a part of general population. And I think I can't prove it, but I think it was a concerted effort to figure out who can they pin this on as a scapegoat that doesn't have the ability to get back at them. They slept on former Lieutenant Quetisha Epps because she came back swinging. But apparently, former Lieutenant Fabrizi doesn't have an opportunity to fire back. So you know what? You do now, brother. Reach out to the Finest Unfiltered. I'd love to get your story.
Yeah, I wouldn't invite him on here. But I think he's got a legal case because that's the best part. They put a legal case on this guy. Yet, what about Kinsella, Caban, Madry, Shell, Daughtry? They all allowed this stuff to happen. Benoit, chief of personnel. Don't think I didn't forget about you. All these people, chief of detectives. How are you allowing this if he's in a squad? I mean, this is ridiculous that the one guy is falling on a sword. And just so people know here in this article, it said that Herbst was convicted. This is a New Jersey chief. In February 2025, after a 3-week trial on multiple counts of official misconduct, 1 count of pattern of official misconduct, 1 count of sexual assault, and 1 count of criminal sexual conduct. And that's from the Attorney General Plotkin there of New Jersey. Just so you know, right? And in the evidence, it says, according to trial evidence, Herbst victimized at least 3 women. Beginning in 2008, he groped, exposed himself to, and sexually harassed a police department employee. Over the next 13 years, his conduct escalated to sexual assault, often while on duty and inside police headquarters. The jury found Herbst abused his power in other incidents in 2016 and 17. He solicited sexual favors from the wife of a subordinate officer in exchange for favorable employment decisions, including a promotion. In another case, he demanded sexually explicit photos of a different subordinate's wife for a schedule change. This guy's a monster. And that's what Madry and all these other guys, there's so many rumors and allegations and lawsuits telling you about this stuff. But again, Eric, anyone being held accountable, we got to federalize the police department, or that's the answer.
And that's why this upper echelon thought they have so much power and authority. And that's why I say kudos to former Lieutenant Quetisha Epps. I know I get a lot of polarizing statements from that. I'm not saying that she's not complicit in any of this, right? But I will say they, and when I say they, that's Jeffrey Madry and the rest of the upper echelon, tried to throw former Lieutenant Quetisha Epps under the bus. And she came back swinging. She had leverage, and she fought back because they wanted to throw her under the rug. So the NYPD upper echelon does a great job of finding scapegoats. So there's no doubt about it. The former Lieutenant Fabrizi is a scapegoat. They find scapegoats. Let's look at Terrell Anderson from Camden Assessment. He's another scapegoat. This department finds scapegoats to deflect from the upper echelon. So if you're an Internal Affairs Bureau right now, which I call the Selective Affairs Bureau, you have to take a good look at yourself, especially if you're in Group 1 in the Internal Affairs Bureau, and you're supposed to investigate executives where there's misconduct and corruption. Ask yourself, are you doing an honest job? I don't have to ask myself those questions. It's not, Sal, neither do you. But Travis Rutherford, Sergeant in Selective Affairs Bureau, and people like that, when you wake up in the morning, ask yourself, were you used? Did you investigate a case to deflect from those executives? Were you actually investigating those executives? Only you know the truth.
And again, these guys, I think that this indictment, or way they're treating him, is the way they should be looking at Madry and company. For God knows what was going on. We're going to get to the bottom of it, but I don't know. We're not going to see. I don't think you're ever going to see that in New York City, because, again, instead of holding them accountable, we need to federalize the police department, which is the mistake. You need to have public corrupt figures held accountable. That's it. That's the answer. But I know, once again, someone wants their golf course, want a casino there for $100 million, and they need their name back on the woman rink. Apparently, that's what's more important. And then the last thing I wanted to show you before you're out of here, because I know we're taking up a lot of your time, Eric. John Shell, apparently this weekend, John put this up, John McCarry, saying, so humble. And there's a post, and it's John Shell on his LinkedIn. But somehow it says John Shell, NYPD Chief of Department, with his picture of him in uniform. I don't know what's going on there. It says, thank you to the Jonas Brothers for the invite. Great night at MetLife Stadium. See you guys at the after party. And then he answers John saying, great show. Thank you for posting. And I don't know. I mean, I already got this guy putting his stupid hashtags up everywhere. Remember, you can't belittle someone in a litigation against you. And John McCarry did chime in saying crumbs needs to be federalized. But that is funny. But you don't see an issue there that he's using his account. He's portraying himself as the chief of department. Now he says he's at a concert. Did he get this concert as a quid pro quo? I mean, you're the chief of department, here's tickets. It doesn't sound good. It doesn't look good. The appearance of pimp and propriety is gigantic, but when you don't hold anyone accountable because you want your name on the Woolman rink and you're looking to put a $100 million casino in your golf course, this is the kind of behavior you're going to get. But we need to federalize the police department, Eric.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, John Shell, being the highest ranking uniform member in the largest department in the entire world, doesn't have a personalized account. That personalized account has a picture of himself in uniform, and to me, that's a public figure. I don't believe he has a personal account. But to me, his personal account, quasi-personal account, and his job accounts, they don't read like accounts that you would see from a respectful figure. To me, they read like, it looks like a troll account. They look like they're fake monikers. He sounds like a teenager. He acts like a complete jackass. And what's sad about that, and I feel sorry for John Shell. I honestly do. I feel sorry for him that he feels that this is leadership, to act like a teenager on social media. In reality, he's just embarrassing the entire police department. I travel through the entire country. In the entire country, when they find out I'm NYPD, go, wow, what is going on in that city? Thank you, John Shell. You are the representative of that.
Chronicles of the Collapse says, what middle-aged man goes to the Jonas Brothers and brags about it? If you're taking your daughters, okay, I get it. But he took Juju instead. Highly suspect. I don't know who he took. I just could tell you, I don't know. I don't know what he's doing. I think he's, again, using his social media account as his police department account. He's blurring all the lines. He's violated so many rules, laws, the Hatch Act yet. He killed someone on the job. He lied on his taxes. Now he's definitely getting sued by myself. I don't know what to say about this guy. I find that like unbelievable what he did over the weekend. But again, some of the people and things, federalizing the police department, I don't think it's a good idea. Federal monitor is a separate issue. But I think if you just held your leadership, executives accountable, there's no need to federalize anything, because it's those guys that are running the ship into the ground, sunk to the bottom of the ocean. That's the reasoning. You don't want to hold anyone accountable. If you start holding people accountable, the whole thing will change. That's how I see it. So what are your final thoughts on everything, Eric? And I don't know if you have anyone on the show tomorrow. I know you got you'll be up on deck 8 o'clock in the morning, 8:05.
For me, 4:05 in the morning. So,
yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
Great question, KB. Says, another question. Why does the chief of department have an intel security detail? If I remember in the past, the chief of department only got a uniformed member of service as a driver. Great question.
Correct.
This administration has cost the New York City taxpayer so much money. And I'll tell you why the chief of department in the NYPD needs a security detail is because he acts like a jackass on social media, is so unprofessional, has put himself in a position that he's a polarizing figure and created so much hate and animosity. There are people out there that just completely despise the NYPD because of you. Because Johnny Hashtags can't keep his fingers off the keyboard. And it's pretty sad. You have to say to yourself, if Johnny Hashtags has so much time to be on the keyboard, how are you actually paying attention to what's going on out there? So my hat's off to the boots on the ground, because with this epic failure, and you said run it into the ship, it's already been run into the ship. And it's amazing that the cops and detectives could pull off the job that they do with this upper echelon. I mean, it's almost like we could completely separate the upper echelon to what's going on to the boots on the ground. It's two different police departments right now. It's sad and it's pathetic. I mean, we spoke about a female police officer that jumped in the water to chase down a perp. Now, I clap for her, don't get me wrong, for the amount of bravery and courage she had. I think it's not a great move. I think you should laugh at the perpetrator and say, hey, here's the cuffs. I know you want that. Come get it, because that perpetrator is going to be exhausted. But the fact that there's still police officers that have that heart inside, that they want to do the police work, right? That's why it takes a team of cops and a good sergeant to police each other and say, wait a minute, I know your heart's in the right place, but stop for a minute. But thank God for police officers like this that still have their heart in the game, because triple fat necks, Johnny Hashtags, thinks it's professional to play games on a keyboard like a little teenager. It's disgusting. He's embarrassing the police department. But you know what? I feel sorry for him, because one day he's going to lay down, he's going to have his pension and go, wow, I embarrassed myself and entire police department. And more importantly, you embarrass your family.
Yeah. Shout out to that sergeant as well, because you have to actually be in shape to do that. Remember that. Big thing going on is cops don't or aren't in shape. I mean, we've seen some that are just, I don't know. But right there's a swimmer. There's a swimmer. So there you go. Someone who's in shape that could actually save your life. Maybe you need
but
to.
You know what, Sal, I don't mean to cut you off, but one more thing. There's a lot of people that are anti-women when it comes to policing. And what we've been talking about is masculinity. Not male or female, but clearly that woman has those masculine traits. I'm not saying she's not a feminine woman off the job. I don't know her. But she has those masculine traits that are necessary. She just needs good leadership to guide her in the direction. Somebody should have said, hey, stop for a minute. Good intentions, but bad judgment right now. But it just shows that there are great women that do police work. There are great women. It's just how we utilize women in their role, and so the fact that her heart was in the right place, there are still good women out there doing policing that have those masculine traits which are necessary to do this job.
I agree. So, Eric, you have anything else? Because I know I've kept you a long time, and I know tomorrow you'll be on 8:05 Live. So,
Sal, it's my pleasure. I'll stay with you all day, man. It's all good. I'm having a pleasure here. I enjoy Juju being here, spending his or her, whoever he is. We have an idea who you are. Spend your entire workday trolling this podcast. Think about that. For the world out there that's watching this podcast, we have NYPD employees that troll this account, spend their entire day. So you know what I say? Thanks for being a fan. We appreciate it.
I don't know. This guy's he's losing it. Eric, come December 31st, I can guarantee you he's not going to have a job, because this guy is polling so low. You're going to need every other candidate to drop out. And even so, if he was the last man standing, people might write in a different candidate. They despise this guy, Eric Adams. He's got no shot. None. I don't care who. Now the real estate guys are listening to having Curtis. They had a big thing, by the way, in the Hamptons. So Curtis Sleever was at a big fundraiser there, and it was John Katz that invited him. So now those people that were donating to Eric Adams, oh, Eric, are now saying, wait a minute, Curtis is a better fit. So, Juju, come December 31st, again, I hope you're not taking a long walk off a short pier when your boy's not there anymore.
Yeah. And Sal, just want to say, as always, thank you, brother. Thank you to the Finest Unfiltered for doing a great job. I really appreciate it. And the fans, when I mean haters, we appreciate it too. But our friends and listeners that are engaged on the chat and engaged with us on a constant basis, we appreciate it. You're just as important to the platform as the Finest Unfiltered. We appreciate it. Let's keep it rocking. Thank you so much. And we'll be back tomorrow, of course, myself and John. We got a great interview tomorrow. We got a mental health professional tomorrow, so check it out. And then, of course, at night, you'll have the executive perspective. So keep it rocking, brother.
Thanks for coming on, Eric. It was great having you on. And I think the people need to get freshened up a little bit on that federalization of the police department. And if they need a federal monitor as well. I mean, of course, if there's some accountability, you don't need that. But, I don't know. Somebody needs to whisper in the president's ear, I guess. And it can't be someone that's in crypto or doing real estate deals with Eric Adams or part of Eric Adams' camp, because that was the beginning of the downfall of the crack in MAGA, so to speak. But now to give us the producer's take, Jack, who is waiting in the wings, listening to the interruption. So what do you got for us today, Jack?
Well, first of all, let's kind of take a look at the most recent poll that was put out by Siena. Obviously, a smaller sample size than the one that we saw from Zenith Research about a week and a half ago, but it shows Zoran Mamdani still with a nice commanding lead at 44%, followed by Curtis Sliwa at 12%, Andrew Cuomo at 25%, and then last and certainly least. Usually you say last but not least. In this case, we say last and definitively least is Eric Adams, who's occupying the outhouse all by himself with 7% of the vote. The time is up for Eric Adams right now, and I think the attention has pivoted to Andrew Cuomo and Curtis Sliwa as it pertains to the mayoral race, and a front runner or a secondary candidate perhaps overtaking Mamdani. There's going to need to be a coalition amongst the secondary three. It is noteworthy that in the Zenith Research poll, even if you took Sliwa, Cuomo, and Adams and combined their votes, they're still 7% short of Mamdani. And then in the most recent one, if you combine their votes, they're still 2% shy of Mamdani. So there's a very steep path to trying to take down the Democratic nominee. He has the backings of the unions. A lot of people who supported Cuomo have gone over to him. And of course, the coalition idea right now is wishful thinking, because not everyone who supports Cuomo is going to go vote for Sliwa. They might then go vote for Mamdani, but it's going to be very difficult for someone to pull an upset off come November 4th.
Again, it's always difficult because Mamdani's got a lot of support from unions, 7-1 or 6-1 Democrat to Republican. But with 4 people in the race, again, I can tell you from the polls that I know, and Roger Stone, who's been sort of advising Curtis. Remember, he was also advising guys like Mike Bloomberg, who got elected. So he is stating that there's polls. There's a whole innovative thing. So every night after 12, they're polling people, and they take 5 polls, and each night the new one replaces the last one, the very first one, right? Each night, this poll is showing that Curtis Sliwa, everybody's holding their water except Cuomo's slowly dropping now. Eric Adams is rock bottom. Don't even think about it. And Mamdani has just stayed flat. Curtis is the only person that keeps gaining, whether it's a point and a half. This is every night. So the battle again is really Mamdani and Curtis. But with a 4-man race, again, I think it kind of helps the Republican because of the voter registration. But again, these polls though show one thing: whether they're fake, they're slanted, they're calling people from Tennessee to see if they're a likely voter. Undecideds are very high. The undecided at 10, 15%. That's enough to sway any election. So again, it shows he's not only within striking distance, he certainly has the best chance of any Republican in the last 15 to 20 years, meaning going back to Bloomberg, which was the last time Roger Stone even talked to a mayoral candidate or someone that was serious about running, and he won. I mean, Bloomberg did win. So you're seeing Curtis come out. He's mentioning now he's going into economics, how he's going to do with the city, I believe, with the housing crisis. He's all over the place. I see him everywhere. People were complaining. Curtis is everywhere where I don't know where. Mamdani's making it about Trump. Now, that is what they're hoping on. Because remember, 69% of New York City registered voters will vote against the Trump-endorsed candidate. But Curtis is not the Trump-endorsed candidate. So it's not going to work when you're running against someone who's not even in the race. Mamdani's making it about Trump. I don't know who told him to do that. That is a mistake. And Cuomo, that guy he's attacking Mamdani, yet he needs to look at himself. His house is made of glass. And Eric, he's dancing for the last couple of months that he has left in office.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the voters in those polls are going to make a decision as election day gets closer. Remember, we're still 2.5 months away from this thing. So there's a lot of people who are kind of on the fence that can be swayed. And Cuomo's mismanagement of his campaign by rehating the same nachos that had been sitting in the fridge for the past 3 months and now getting so desperate that he's deciding to associate with President Trump, that plays right into Sliwa's favor, because the moment that most New York City voters see President Trump and hear that Cuomo is getting on the phone to try and get financial backing to win this thing, they want to start to jump ship to other candidates. So that's really helping. But in regards to the federalization of New York City's resources, it's no secret that New York City needs some federal oversight. And we've been picking on the police department a little bit or a lot over the past couple of months for their financial mismanagement. So I want to point out the financial mismanagement that's been taking place statewide with the MTA and some of the other transportation agencies. So you see Jano Lieber, the president of the MTA, who makes $420,000 a year, already high, has taken a ton of criticism for that salary, $187 rate of pay. And then you scroll up to the top paid employee for the entire agency, and you come to find out it's a lieutenant for bridges and tunnels in the MTA who's making $48 an hour. And as a matter of fact, this trend is relatively representative of the rest of the payroll. You have a sergeant making $6 an hour less who made $474,000 a year. You had a lieutenant detective making $87 an hour, $446,000 a year. And then you scroll down a little bit more, and here's where it gets really surprising, right? Because you have a guy from the Metro North agency who's a track supervisor with a rate of pay of $53 an hour, making $404,000 a year. So the financial egregious mismanagement, if you want to call it that, is really radiating down to other agencies. And it was funny yesterday that Elise Stefanik, the Republican front runner to run for governor, comes out and tweets that New York State is facing a $34 billion budget gap because of Kathy Hochul. And then when you look at New York City, the state's largest city, their budget, it's $35 billion for the entire city. So, I mean, the numbers kind of align in a weird sense. And I think the common denominator here is we need to cut spending. One of the reasons that we need to cut spending is because people are fleeing New York very fast. So the billionaires who are funding the entire city and the employees' salaries and all that good stuff, they're running away. If you lose $12 billion in earnings from people who live in New York City, how are you possibly going to be funding all of these things? And if you're Elise Stefanik, how do you cut down this budget? We all know that there's the blame game being thrown out about whose fault it is that finances have been mismanaged. But I have trouble seeing Stefanik fixing all of this. There's a big problem, and there needs to be collaboration between the city, the state, and the federal level if this is going to be fixed. Just throwing the National Guard in the subway system with no advance notice, with no collaboration, is not going to work. So you need to have a federal monitor who oversees the budget, the promotions, the appointments, all that stuff. And then you need people who are really good at safety, fire, sanitation to oversee the other things. Because right now, in its current state, New York City's mismanagement is piling on top of itself, and it continues to pile on. And this is just an unsustainable way of running a city that's powering the rest of the country. At least it's being alleged that that's the case.
It's alleged. Marlon Bethel says the MTA takeover, aka covert bailout, is coming soon too. And Kevin Mannion says the MTA is just a backwards Yeah, I'm going to say this. This guy keeps saying this in the chat. Julius Laguerra, Sal, if Trump takes over the NYPD, will he have the power to hire, fire, and promote staff? I'm just going to tell you that's never going to happen. So he's never going to take over the NYPD. You could put a monitor in, a federal monitor, and a monitor overseeing everything. But in all reality, he should just go and indict Eric Adams and all the people that have like all these investigations that were done for the last year and a half, and they're just sitting on it because, once again, someone wants their name on a woman rink and also has $100 million casino on a golf course. That's all you need to know. Quid pro quo. What would I know? And before you go, I always like to leave on a high note, but man, the Mets and Yankees are collapsed, and the Marlins were 500. Now they're 3 or 4 games under, losing to the Astros. So it's like falling apart. I mean, football's around the corner,
Yeah, for the first time in years, Sal, I'm actually looking forward to football season because generally speaking, the Jets and the Giants season is over by Halloween, if not Thanksgiving. So usually it's like we're dreading football season, but after watching 2 preseason games, listen, sample size is small, only 1 game for the Jets and Giants in the preseason. I like what I saw out of Jackson Dart in Buffalo. And then on the flip side, Justin Fields was really, really good for the Jets. So, I mean, listen, neither team is going to be fantastic. I don't foresee either winning the Super Bowl, but I do believe that we're going to have a football season where both are at least competing for a playoff spot. Now, in regards to what's taking place in the outhouse, yeah, the Mets, I mean, it's like they invent new ways to lose. I'm sure you saw the game on Saturday where it was 5-4 in the 8th inning. William Contreras flies out, or so it seems, but he apparently called a timeout before the pitch, and then the very next pitch, he clobbers one out of the ballpark. Milwaukee right now is riding on a magic carpet, and I have a feeling that once we get to the postseason, Cinderella's magic carriage is just going to instantly turn into a pumpkin. There's no way that they're going to keep winning all these games, that the pitching is going to be fantastic, that these waiver wire players, I mean, look at Andrew Vaughn's stat line. This guy was released by the Chicago effing White Sox, who are like 30 games below 500 a couple months ago. And now he has 7 home runs, 29 RBIs, and is batting .352 with a .419 on base percentage in just 26 games with Milwaukee. Listen, that's the classic example of a change of scenery helping out. But the point here is that the Brewers are getting abnormally lucky and the Mets are getting abnormally unlucky, even though they're just not a good baseball team. Blowing leads with the bullpen collapsing, the bottom of the lineup not figuring it out when the top finally is getting in the rhythm. It's a collective effort for this team, and they're totally imploding. I say they get back on track against Atlanta with Citi Field. Clay Holmes gets to take the ball. Probably going to go like 5 innings as he usually does. But Sal, you got to call up some of the young kids down in AAA. Sproat, McLean, maybe Jonah Tong at some point in a month. I want to see the young guys play for the Mets in this last stretch of the season, see what they can maybe do in the postseason as well.
Yeah, but I don't want to see Brandon Nimmo out there anymore. Tune in tonight, the 10-4 Tavern. They're going to be on at 7 o'clock. I think in the chat we had up who they're going to have on. I'm trying to find it. And Executive Perspective tomorrow will actually, Ron Langston stated they will be, him and Rob Lukesh will be going over that very video we just showed you of the sergeant jumping into the water, which shows that some people are still in shape in the job. So Jennifer Armstrong, former Assistant Director of the U.S. Marshal Service, will be on tonight, 10-4 Tavern, 7:05 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss out on that one. And tomorrow, Executive Perspective at 17:05, 5:05. Ron and Rob will be breaking down that hero cop that jumped into the water, because some people are still in shape. Not everybody is just having donuts all day like some claim. And, of course, 8:05 live in the morning, you'll have Eric and John on the Finest Unfiltered. So with that being said, we're going to wave goodbye for now until Thursday. And I hope everybody has a good rest of the day. Thank you all for your comments and being active with us in the chat. That's what we like to see. And please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget to subscribe. I have my own YouTube. It's the Sal Greco Show segments. And I do a lot of things on there as well. I show segments from this show. And I also think I'm going to try this walk and talk concept. We'll see. I'm still working on it. So I'm going to sign off here from South Florida. Hope everyone has a good rest of your day. I'll see you again on Thursday. And remember, signing off from Florida, which is a sunny place for shady people.
So this is a biblical moment. You know, when Jesus was on the cross, he said, God, forgive them, for they know not what they do. All these Negroes who are asking me to step down, God, forgive them. Are you stupid?